Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Wednesday review. Today I am reviewing the 6th studio album from, at this point, veteran thrash metal band Warbringer, who had been, of course, been going at it since 2004. That is Weapons of Tomorrow, which was released through Napalm Records on April 24th. So, again, like I've just stated, these guys have been going at it since 2004, releasing, of course, their debut EP, One by One, The Wicked Fall, in 2006, and then, of course, their very first full-length album, War Without, and ever since then, they've been pumping out plenty of just, seems to be decent or just solid thrash metal albums. I know I probably shouldn't have been using the word decent, but I don't want, hopefully I didn't mean that as an insult. Still, they've just been pumping out albums since then, of course, going pretty good strongly in the 2010s. But here, this is their first album to pretty much to kick their era, their time, and of course, here the 2020s. So, and of course, beginning here with Weapons of Tomorrow. I mean, of course, 2020 not been the greatest year so far, but bands like this obviously are doing their damnedest to try and make something out of this year, and I think they did a pretty swell job. So, without further ado, let's get into the 6th studio album from Warbringer. That is Weapons of Tomorrow. Alright, before I really get into my thoughts on this album, let's do a track listing rundown. We got at least about 10 songs total, and it all clocks in at 50 minutes and 57 seconds. So these songs, of course, consist of Firepower Kills, The Black Hand Reaches Out, Crushed Beneath the Tracks, Defiance of Fate, Unraveling, Heart of Darkness, Power Unsurpassed, Outer Reaches, Notre Dame, King of Fools, and Glorious End. Notre Dame, King of Fools being one song, and again, comma next to that. So there you go. There's your 10 songs here. So, where do I really begin with this album? Let's actually dial this back to the time when I actually was introduced to Warbringer, which goes all the way back to 2009. Again, I remember at this point they only had one full-length album under their belt at this point, or I think close to at least. Actually, yeah, they had two actually at this point, being War Without End and Waking into Nightmares. But what introduced me to them was through, of course, One by One, The Wicked Fall. It seems like this was one of the, at least when it comes to Warbringer, this was like the one release a lot of people on YouTube really were using, because I used to watch a lot of those thrash metal compilation videos where they add in very different bands. This is how I found out about bands like Sodom, Destruction, Violence, and Dark Angel, and so on, so on, and so on. So, but they always got thrown into these videos, and that's how I knew about them. But really, the first full couple of tastes I really got from them, or at least of hearing anything full from them, was from the Speed Kills Again compilation, which was released through, of course, at this point now, the now defunct Heavy Artillery Records, which Warbringer used to have been signed under. Heavy Artillery Records should also be looked at as the label that pretty much introduced most of us to, of course, and helped pretty much harbinger a lot of that retro thrash metal movement. I know that's probably not a good term anymore, because I think a lot of these bands, especially like Warbringer, would just be referred to as a thrash metal band and not some retro thrash metal tag. But you kind of have to look at it from a historical standpoint, that it was a movement. The new breed of thrash metal bands and Heavy Artillery were the ones that helped pretty much move it forward. They were the beginning. They were a hotbed for it, just like how record labels back in the 80s, like Neat Records and Metal Blade, were a hotbed for their soul movements. Neat Records being the hotbed for the new wave or British heavy metal movement, and Metal Blade for being all, again, the up and coming speed metal, thrash metal, at times US power metal, and just straight up the more underground heavy metal bands. So Heavy Artillery were the same thing for, of course, again, a lot of the newer thrash metal bands. And again, it was the Speed Kills Again comp that really introduced a lot of us to, of course, bands like Merciless Death, and like at times Toxic Holocaust, though Joel Grind had been grinding it since, no pun intended, since the late 90s and early 2000s. But that comp, I think, did a pretty good help of pretty much bringing more of an audience, to more of a wider audience, I think, to, of course, Toxic Holocaust. But Warbringer were on that compilation. Of course, Enforcer, that, of course, falling into the new wave, traditional heavy metal movement, which pretty much came after the sort of the retro thrash metal or newer thrash metal movement. So, but Warbringer were on there, and which of course I do own the Speed Kills Again comp, and I got those songs from Warbringer, and really, when listening to this album and then listening to the stuff they did before, it's actually surprising how well they've progressed over time. I mean, when they started out, when you listen to those songs, they at least contributed to the Speed Kills Again comp, which could have been, I think, were from the One by One, the Wicked Fall EP from 2006. But when you go and listen to those stuff and then listen to the material on this album, and then even the previous album, Woe to the Vanquished, it really, you could tell they really honed in even more of their sound. They really progressed. They really definitely turned into, they really edged out a lot of their sound. Because again, they were raw, they were more hungry, and they were just absolutely were very vicious sounding. But at the same time, I don't know if you could say that they were really were creating anything that was absolutely worth earth shattering. I mean, this album, I know I don't know if you could say it's earth shattering, but it's absolutely great. I think this right here is, to me personally, could very well be one of Warbringer's best albums, because Weapons of Tomorrow is chock full of just great, solid, crunchy, again, straight to the jugular, no bullshit. Put the foot on the gas pedal, thrash metal. I know I'm screwing up words, because again, I'm just going off the cuff on what's coming to my mind, but eventually I'll get the stuff that at least I have thoroughly written down on my notes here. But still, I'm just trying his best to really just summon up how good this album is. This is some solid thrash metal. Every bit of this, wherever they were in the beginning, that was a little bit, that needed to be worked out. Everything got worked out in here. This is definitely really Warbringer finding their voice. They really found their sound. They were able, some are gonna go, well, they're copying so-and-so. Well, at least they sound more mature sounding. They sound obviously like a band that really knows how to at least craft some pretty good modern day thrash metal, in my opinion, because again, there's some great riffs on here, even if some might say it sounds recycled. But be quite honest, nothing has been original anymore at this point, so why should anybody even give a shit? Obviously I don't. I go by what I like, and this album I absolutely do like. So without further, of course, so before I get in any further, I gotta say, vocalist John Kevill sounds absolutely menacing on this album. I mean, you can compare him to at times Mile Petroza of Creator. I don't know, I might have butchered his name there, of Creator. Again, one of the most classic German thrash metal bands, like Pleasure to Kill. And you can definitely at times compare John Kevill's vocals to how Mile definitely sounded on an album such as Pleasure to Kill. Again, it's got that very German, almost like a garlic razor blades style vocals, but it works to this album's advantage and it gives it its own dynamic. But instead of just talking about how well this album sounds, let's get to some songs. All right, let's definitely run down a lot of the songs on here. Let's go with Firepower Kills, alright? Let's go with this one. Just an explosive way to open up the album. Just machine gun riffs with great blistering guitar solos. Here and there, I do have to say one thing about this album. Not every song is completely thrash for thrash's sake. There's a lot of good variety, a lot of good tempos, everything, and not every song is stuck in the same speed boat. Every bit of it has a way of changing, like a roller coaster at times. It speeds up, but then within here and there, they know when to slow it down, and then to get back up when it needs to be. So I think they found the right balance between a lot of the writing and how to construct a good thrash metal song, and that's what you get with this album. And of course, the guitar playing at times is very neoclassical at times. There's a lot of great, this album along with the New Testament album, Titans of Creation, I think these are two really solid thrash metal albums. I think they go well together. Just solid construction here. But again, back to Firepower Kills, which again, it's got this. Again, it just starts out very, blastering thrash. And then here and there, midway when it comes to guitar solos, it does slow down a little bit. But then immediately it builds back up, and the solos are just absolutely just ripping along with the song. So just shredding. It's just absolutely great. So I think, again, like I stated, an explosive way to open up the album. Of course, follows next is The Black Hand Reaches Out, which is a more mid-tempo banger, almost at times in the vein of Start the Fire from Metal Church, but it absolutely delivers. I think it's another solid song. Again, just another good crunchy riff, just great shit. And of course, we got Crush Beneath the Tracks. Well, it crushes. All I gotta say about this song, it's an absolute blast to listen to. It's another good song. But that's when we then get to, of course, the fourth song here, which is Defiance of Fate. This is one of the more longer songs of the album because it actually clocks in at 7 minutes and 8 seconds. But with this song, it is very much the band's attempt to add a Welcome Home Sanitarium type, but without being a clone. It's still very cool, especially with John Kevil's gargling with Razor's vocals, which definitely gives this song its own dynamic. It's definitely a cool song, but I would say between some of the more longer ones, of course, there's at least two really long ones. Again, Defiance of Fate and Heart of Darkness. But eventually I'll talk about Heart of Darkness. But Defiance of Fate is definitely, I wouldn't say a ballad, but again, think of Welcome Home Sanitarium off the Master of Puppets from Metallica. But again, it's not a clone, but it's still a good song. So let's definitely move on, because up next is Unraveling. With this song, I'm going to have to give every one of you a bit of a warning, because whatever you do, don't be driving while listening to this song, because you either will get the cops, or worse, get in a car wreck. Because this song is absolutely just blistering. Holy shit, this song just absolutely rips. It's a flesh ripper. I fucking love this song. Just great. And of course, towards the end of the song, it does slow down a little bit, because again, it really just is able to breathe down your neck without ever leaving any gaps of air. Just a good song nonetheless. I really love this song. It's a fun as shit song to listen to. So there you go with Unraveling. But after what comes next is Heart of Darkness, and it is the last of the more longer songs, because it's like, while Defiance of Fate clocks in at 7 minutes and 8 seconds, Heart of Darkness, on the other hand, clocks in at 7 minutes and 12 seconds, so it's slightly longer, but it's still within the same time limit, basically. But with this song, what they do with this one is, instead of trying to be like almost Welcome Home Sanitarium in terms of its composition and structure, this one's a little different, because this one actually flirts with some semi-black metal structures, but isn't a black metal song by any means. But in a way, it does kind of, it mixes it with the song. So it's got its own dynamics, is what I'm trying to say. It's got its own. It mixes in a little bit of a black metal feel to it, which it seems like that they've been doing since some of the past couple of albums. But in here, they really, I think, really kind of honed down some of that sort of extreme metal structuring. But it's actually good. It's still thrash metal. That's all it has to be said. It's still thrash metal. Again, not full-fledged black metal, but it has that. And of course, thanks to John Kevil's vocals, which again kind of stride that sort of area, or that line between real, again, almost being thrash metal, but at times just being really extreme style vocals. That also can work at times even like black metal and death metal and some of those kind of genres. It works. That same thing how NastyMetalProductions vocals on like Pleasure to Kill at times almost bordered that line between death metal or black metal, especially even on Endless Pain. So it was kind of, and then that same that dynamic. So anyways, I am comparing John Kevill to again Mila Petroza of Creator. So definitely a good song. So let's definitely move on. Let's get to Power Unsurpassed, and of course Out of Reaches, which are both punishing net breakers. They're both solid songs. Just a great way to really keep the balance of this album together. So it definitely moves the album again into really that nice smooth lane where it just again cruises along in more good fashion. They're both good songs. But up next is Notre Dame, King of Fools, which starts off kind of Call of Cthulhu-like. Very Call of Cthulhu-like off of Ride the Lightning, but then turns into another black metal meets thrash metal track like Heart of Darkness, but it has more thrash metal elements than compared to Heart of Darkness. It's still full-on thrash, but again, mixing a little bit of that more of extreme metal feel to the song. It's another good song. But then we get to, of course, Glorious End, and well, it's a glorious end. From the blackened-like grand opening to the flesh-ripping riffs and the net-breaking speed and the solos, it's a great way to end the album, so there's nothing there to really complain about. So there you go. There is Weapons of Tomorrow from Warbringer, and my score, it's a 9.95 out of 10. I think this is a great freaking thrash metal album. I think this is definitely some Warbringer's best material. I think since they've come a long way. The thrash for thrash sake of their beginning days to now to really just finding their voice, knowing how to structure a thrash metal song. They've really come a long way. I think this is definitely some of their best material. I think it's definitely worthy of being some of the best thrash metal albums of this year. And there's been some pretty solid thrash metal albums. I've been surprised by how good we've at least gotten through this shitty year. We've gotten some pretty good thrash metal albums. I think that's an achievement, in my opinion. Because again, I don't really look at thrash metal albums because there really just hasn't really been very many thrash metal albums in the past couple of years that haven't really surprised me or that really made me go, wow, that album's actually really damn good. Not really. There's been some good ones here and there, but there really just has, I feel like, I know guys like Scott Waters could very well disagree with me, but personally for me, there really just hasn't been. But something about this year with, again, like the new Warbringer and the Testament, there's just some good, solid thrash metal, and I definitely got to give it to these guys. They did a good job. So, this album has been out since April 24th, and for any of those who are at least that have been following Warbringer and I have heard this album, what are your thoughts on this album? And if you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments section below. But if you haven't checked this album out, again, if you like the New Testament, if you like at times also some of the new thrash metal albums, like even the new Virus or so on, you know what? I think you definitely should be checking this album out. If you haven't yet, I mean, it's been out since April 24th, but if you haven't, I recommend checking it out. I think it's a solid thrash metal album. I think it's definitely another good contender for some of the best thrash metal albums of 2020. So with that, I hope y'all enjoyed. This is Every Thrash I Say. I'm out, and I'll see y'all later. Take care, everyone.